Welcome to Power Your Life Today, the podcast that helps you live a life of more service, value, and love. I'm your host, Christy Joe, mind and body strategist and creator of PowerYourLifeToday.com. If you are ready to build and apply mindset strategies to help you stand in your power, head to PowerYourLifeToday.com to download the Female's Guide to Powering Her Life. Welcome to Season 3, where I am interviewing my parents about parenting power. They are the two people I admire most in this world, and I am so excited to share them and their insights with you. Today in Power Session number 54, we are discussing parenting theory versus reality. Some of the topics we're going to discuss include what they thought about parenting before they got married and how that differs from what they know about parenting now, how they worked to break patterns from past generations, characteristics they have developed as parents, relationship building techniques for strong parenting skills, how to not leverage the other parent as a weapon to the children, how to handle derisive children and not overreact, books and programs that have made a big difference, what it felt like to become empty nesters, and how if parents aren't careful, they can feel extremely unimportant and empty, and so much more. This is just to kick off our Season 3, so we'll just be kind of talking about a lot of things. Hope you enjoy and learn something. We are doing this to open a dialogue. There is no formula for parenting. And so as we talk and share perspectives, hopefully it will help you feel more confident and gain that insight that you need in your own situation or, like me, future situations, hopefully. And so if this is of value to you, definitely encourage you to share this with somebody it may bless as well. All right. I'm excited to introduce to you my parents, Rod and Patrice.
Well, I'm very, very excited to have both of you here today with me on Power Your Life Today to open up Season 3, where we're talking about parenting. And I am very lucky to be able to talk to my parents. I can't think of anybody else who's ever had this opportunity. So thanks, Mom and Dad, for being here.
You're very welcome.
Why don't we start with you just giving a brief introduction, both of you, just about what you're currently doing in life right now, and then we'll get going with this. Dad, do you want to go first?
Okay. I teach high school science. I'm in my 36th year of teaching and still going strong for a few more years. And wow, what else?
He supports his wife in all the stuff that she does. So I'll segue into my part. As you know, Christy, we've had 7 children, and so we're out of, per se, the parenting phase, but there's still a lot of parenting and grandparenting going on. But I personally am teaching piano lessons and have been for about, 12, 13 years, I think, and have a full studio with that. And I also run a community garden, and I ride horses a lot.
And you love it.
Oh, I love everything I do. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. You know, our main goal in doing this parenting season is to have conversation and open a dialogue. And what I appreciate about both of you and what I tell my listeners all the time, 90% of the things they're hearing me say is what I've learned from you. And so thank you for being wonderful parents. Obviously, I really value your input, which is why we're doing this. So let's first just talk about the difference between what people think parenting is in theory versus reality. I'm curious about when you very first were dating and got married and you were thinking about, all of our dreams and having kids. What were some of those things that you thought that were quickly proven wrong? So, in the first few years of having kids.
Well, Dad's reminded me of this very first situation. We were dating. We weren't even engaged. And we're at something one evening and kind of talking in the intermission, and he says, so how many kids would you like? And I just off the cuff said 12. And he tells me later, remember when you said you wanted 12? I said, thank you for not holding me to that. So Dad's one of 8, and I'm one of 7 children. So we grew up in large families. And so as we talked before we got married, it was just a given that we both wanted to have a large family. And in the hindsight now, as I thought back then, we both thought that we were older getting married, and so we should have our kids fairly soon. We were 23, almost 24 when we got married. I kind of laugh at that now. We were so old my gosh.
Yeah, I'm laughing at that. Your 30-year-old daughter, still single. That's great. Thanks, Mom.
You're welcome. Sorry about that.
And I think at that stage of the game, we were thinking about wanting to have children and discussing how many children, but I don't think at that stage we were yet really thinking about, how are we going to raise them? What do we need to do to raise them? Those thoughts hadn't entered my mind yet.
Not on either of our horizons. I think the biggest thing, and, as I've thought about this, as you and I have talked, Christy, a little bit in preparation for this, I really feel like, some things, if you could go back, you would change. If I could go back, I would not change one thing, because I think what Dad and I did do was we were really paying attention to our relationship. When we were engaged for 5 months. We went to classes on marriage before we got married. We were more focused on our relationship. And so as I look in hindsight, I think 29 gold stars, because if I had one counsel to people who are thinking about getting married and having children, or people who are married and thinking about having children, or people who are married and have children, I would say focus on your marriage relationship. If you want things to go well with your children, have a good marriage.
Dad, can you think of any advice or anything you'd ever heard from your parents or other people that you quickly learned either A, they were right, or B, they were wrong, and that your situation was going to be different than what you had been anticipating?
I don't know that I ever really paid that much attention to it at that time. So I can't think of anything right off along those lines.
Do you think other, parents are basically in that situation, that it's more about reacting rather than a proactive?
Yeah, I'm sure sometimes that's the case, yes. Because we don't necessarily plan ahead at that stage.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. You're very ignorant. You don't know. And a lot of times the learning comes because of the situation.
With the doing.
Yeah. It's kind of like having a baby for the first time. You can plan all you want. You can read every book you can get your hands on, but you will never have the education that you'll get after you have your own baby. There's nothing like experience to give you experience.
So talking about some of that growth and development, can you extract a few key characteristics that you had to quickly develop, or by default you did develop?
Well, I'll let Dad think about that a minute, because I'm going to divert a little bit. When I was pregnant with Denzel, with our first baby, I was scared to death, because there were things that I did not want to repeat from my growing up. And, everybody says people repeat history. I did not want to repeat history. There were some very difficult things that I did not want to repeat, and I was terrified. And from the first time that I went away to school at BYU, I spent a lot of time in the bookstore getting books on parenting. Here I am, 17, 18 years old. At that time, parenting was very important to me, even though that was, becoming a mother was not even really on my horizon. But I was away from home, and I knew things had to change, or that I wanted to change. And so I got books. I still have some of those books that really made me think about what I wanted to do differently. And I think if I put it in a small nutshell, it would be to not be a controlling parent. And I'll just fast forward. One of the best compliments I ever received was from your other mother, Julie, when she said, "Would you stop it? You are not controlling." I was just always so afraid that I would be controlling. Anyway, I did break the cycle. So
yeah, a lot of our listeners don't know, and they don't need to know how much of the background, but as your daughter and knowing a little bit more, I can definitely affirm that. and you've done a great job. And it's been fun for you to be so vulnerable and share a lot of your efforts to be breaking those traditions, I guess. Yeah, to change and share that with us so that we're aware. That communication, I think all of us kids have appreciated.
Well, sometimes maybe not at the moment you didn't appreciate it, but a little down the road. But okay,
isn't that the way the parent-child relationship goes, though?
It is, and it just metamorphoses. I was thinking earlier today, I think I may have been a scary mom, at least at some time. Right?
I can't hold back the laughter. I'm sorry.
Okay. I mean, I have had adult people come up to me and say, I used to be afraid of you. And I'm going, I don't get it. Well, I do get it. But, it's better to be feared and obeyed than to, I don't know.
Than disrespected.
That's not true. Yes,
Ooh.
Very much so.
Yeah.
But I'm going to lead Dad into something because when we just had Denzel, and I'll see if my wonderful husband remembers this. We were living in Montezuma Creek on the Indian Reservation, and he was teaching school, and Denzel was about 1.5 years, and he had done something wrong, and Dad just swatted him on his behind. Do you remember what Denzel said?
No, I don't.
Oh, he put Denzel at 1.5 years, puts his hands on his hips and says, so that didn't hurt. And I was sitting on the floor because I was pregnant with our second child, and I'm watching this whole little thing play out, and the thought crossed my mind, is this how parents become child abusers? Well, if you say that didn't hurt, then watch this. Well, Dad didn't do that, and I was very grateful. And it was at that moment, here is where what did they say, the tread hits the ground? Whatever. Anyway, that here we really are in the game. We have 1.5 years old saying, that didn't hurt when he was being disciplined. So was the discipline not effective? What do you do to become effective? And that's when some of the other things that you and I, Christy, have talked about started to be implemented to make sure that I didn't ever cross that bound of what's discipline and what is taking my anger out on a child.
Well, and I'm excited because we're going to do an entire episode on discipline techniques and tactics. So we won't go into much detail on that now. But Dad, going back to you and thinking about some of the development and some of those characteristics you, looking back, can see that you really developed and grew from parenting. What comes to mind?
I think, first of all, I think of trust with Mom. She spent most of the time with the kids. She did do a lot of reading, learning as we went. I was away more, but trusting that she knew what she was doing, and she would share some things with me, and I would try to, implement those as I could. But trusting each other and how we're going to approach this. And anyway, that was a big part of it for me.
When you had those conversations and talking about what you would both implement, was it more after the fact, or was there any of that, like proactive planning of how you'd handle things, or do you feel like it was always after?
I think a lot of it was when an incident occurred, when something came up, we'd have to say, whoa, wait a minute, let's look at this, and what could we have done different?
And I don't remember you ever having those conversations in front of us. How did you two handle those types of parenting conversations? Was there a good time of day that you found, or time of week, and how did that go about?
Why do you think you went to bed so early?
Oh, it makes sense now.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, when you kids were little, you guys had an early bedtime. And because Dad and I needed that time to debrief with his work, with my day, different things. One of the things that I did not want to repeat, and I am proud to say I did not ever, that I can recall, ever utter the words, just wait till your father gets home. I don't think it's fair to the children to put their dad as the bad guy. And I don't think it's fair for the husband when he walks in to say, what are you going to do about this? You know, if you as the wife, and I know that there are a lot of men that are the caregivers, whoever is at home with the children better have enough personal power to deal with the problems, because it's not fair to unload that on the person who's not there walking through the door. So there's that one time, and I'm figuring you had to be about 2, so I don't know that you would remember it, but I did talk to Denzel, Jamie, and Brandon. So I had been working in the evenings as a legal secretary, and so, you know, once Dad got home from school and stuff, I would go to the office to work, and so he would feed you kids and get you ready for bed. Anyway, I got home one night, and Dad just said, oh my gosh, the kids were so bad. And I think it had to do with Kool-Aid and the Kool-Aid jug. You know, I don't remember all the details, but he was really not happy with you kids. So the next morning, Dad's already left for school, and I've got you guys lined up at the counter eating your breakfast. And I said, do you guys know how much I love you? Yeah. No? Do you know how much I love you more than I can even say? So do you know I love you a lot? Yeah. Okay, now, do you know that I love Dad more? And if you ever want to be rude to Dad again, you will deal with me. And, you know, your kids were just like, well, I was concerned. Well, no, I had told Aunt Varma because she was living in town, she and Uncle Frank, and I had related to her that little situation, and she was very upset that I did not handle that well and that I had damaged you kids, etc. And that had kind of stayed in my mind for a bit. And so not too many years ago, I asked the older kids who remembered it, and did that bother you? And the overwhelming response was, no. We knew how much you loved Dad, and we knew that you loved us, and that we better behave. And so, again, I think it goes back to that same thing. When you have a good marriage relationship and your children know it, there is a foundation that is very difficult to rock. The rest of that, your child rearing, is built on that foundation of your marriage relationship. If you don't figure out how to get along and how to work well together, parenting is going to be a pain. It's a pain anyway, but
yeah. Well, and
it's not a pain, difficult.
Well, because I don't feel like that was the only occasion that it was clear to us kids that you both valued your relationship, because I think all of us kids have always known that. So I think it was a reoccurring thing, maybe not ever so strongly as that specific experience, but I would agree with, you know, Denz and Jamie and Brandon about that's amazing and how much that has caused us kids and me specifically to respect that and say, I don't see that same amount of relationship value in a lot of people that I observe. And it's interesting. So I like that you point out that dynamic.
Powerful women are needed more than ever in today's society, not as a threat to men, but as a complement. When we as women stand in our power to achieve our happiest, healthiest selves, everyone around us benefits as well. Head over to poweryourlifetoday.com to download my free tool, A Female's Guide to Powering Her Life. In this download, you will learn the 5 power tools that will help you minimize stress, increase focus, and help you go to bed at night feeling like you are totally on your A game. Again, that's poweryourlifetoday.com.
I was the one who was home 90% of the time, so I had so much more experience. But what I will be forever grateful for is what Dad already mentioned, his trust in me. He never came home and said, oh, I can't believe you did it like that. Or, well, why are you doing this? Or why aren't you doing that? There was never a criticism of me and my parenting. Now, I may have been critical of my parenting. There were many times I went over to the elementary school to apologize to one or the other of the kids because I had been upset, and once I had calmed down, and I wanted each of you children to know when I felt like I was out of line that an apology was in order from me.
I do remember that. Wow.
Yeah.
I would have never remembered. Wow.
And I remember, okay, so you asked Dad, what's something every parent can empathize with? That feeling right there. I didn't know for sure if I was doing it right or wrong. Should I go apologize, or does that make me look weak? Or should I not go apologize because I'm the mother and I need to show that I am in charge? The overwhelming thing every parent, I think, deals with is unsurety, not knowing for sure that this is right or this is right. And sometimes either or many things can be right. And so that's one of the big feelings I remember a lot is just, oh my gosh, what if I ruin my children? You love your children and you want them to be wonderful and have every advantage, and what if you ruin them?
Do you think that every parent feels inadequate in some way?
Yes. Maybe not all the time, but in instances or situations, I'm sure that every parent does at times.
I agree.
How do you get through that? How do you build up your confidence to take action rather than just remove yourself and kind of zone out as a parent?
Well, personally, I think, because there's so many different situations. One of them, so Dad teaches high school. And we know that educators' salaries are not that lucrative. Financial problems were very prevalent. It was difficult for us. But with that all said and done, now a lot of people know that we're LDS. Our religious training, everything in our life revolves around our religious beliefs. And so prayer for every single thing was really important. When you're not sure, but your Heavenly Father is sure, and you can pray for guidance, and there are many times that I felt impressed what to do here, what to do there, or I happened to pick up this book at the library, different things. The answers come in so many different ways. And so I would always recommend to anyone, no matter what their religious beliefs are, I would tell them there is a God, and He does love you, and He does care about how you are raising His children, because they're His children, that He has given to you on loan. And so we have that right and that privilege to be able to approach Him in prayer for guidance and direction in our lives.
When it comes to just theorizing on parenting, and there's so many books, and like you were saying, and there's so many lectures and workshops and things like that, are there any specific books or programs that really made an impact in your learning and your growth and your perspective?
Dad and I are both smiling at each other.
I already know what you're going to say, but our audience doesn't.
Okay. So BYU has the Education Week, and they have a presenter that's been there several times. His name is James Jones? Anyway, his program is Let's Fix the Kids. And
I knew it.
Yeah.
I just had to say, I knew what was in my parents' head, everyone.
Well, because we had met him, and I had made arrangements for him to speak at a large gathering here in southern Utah. And anyway, I had all of his, at that time they were on cassette, not on CDs. And we were coming back from California, and so we were listening to it. He was very entertaining, and so it was enjoyable for the kids to listen to as well. So we get home. Here Denzel is, I think, 14 years old. So he's listened, he's heard these, and he's processing a lot of what's what he's heard. So we get out of the Suburban, we're unloading the stuff, and he said something about, well, I'm going to go do this. And I said, no, I'm going to do this. I said, nevertheless. And he looked at me, and he went, I hate those tapes. Because the one thing that it talked about was the very important and effective use of the word nevertheless. Well, I don't want to clean my room. Nevertheless, you'll need to do that before you can play with your friends. And so pretty soon, you don't even need to follow up with anything. You just say, nevertheless, and it gets the reaction. I hate those tapes, because they know what is coming, that you're not going to bend. It's simply, this is the way it is, and that you don't have to be upset. You don't have to shout. I just have to laugh. I have to really restrain myself from talking to parents at Walmart who are going, Johnny, 1, 2. I'm just going, oh, holy smokes, honey. You are doing a whole lot more work than you need to. Johnny, I said, no. That's the end of the story. You have effective parenting. And I see it even with my sweet little grandboys. And, it becomes second nature. Just Monday when I had Cayman, and he was starting to do some pouting, and I said, Cayman, sorry, hold my hand. Let's go. And he looked at me, and he held my hand, and we went.
And Cayman's 3 right now, right?
Exactly. He is 3. Okay. And very sweet, but he's very 3. And so is it the 3-year-old's problem, or is it the parenting problem when we feel like we have to count and we have to threaten, and it's very ineffective? But I'm sure we'll get into that more later. Huh?
Yeah, I'm excited about that. So, I think a lot of our conversations will revolve around younger kids and teenagers, but I'm curious, did you ever anticipate what it would be like to have all your kids out of the house, most of them married, and now be in grandparent land? Did you ever think about that ahead of time, or has that been more?
I didn't. I just kind of take things as they come.
Well, and
what
again,
has surprised you?
I don't know.
Well, and I remember when you kids, when all of the kids were first out of the house, Dad was kind of mopey, kind of the empty nest syndrome, and just everybody's gone. And we loved our children. We loved having our children. And so, although, Dad comes home from work and
there's nobody that runs to give me a bear hug.
Yeah. And of course that happened over time, but still, when it's the last football game that the kids play in, or the last drill competition, some of those things, I think if parents aren't careful, they can all of a sudden feel extremely isolated, unimportant, empty. Not just an empty nest, but maybe an empty heart. And I think to my benefit, I had my piano students that I had not been teaching long. And so this was a new horizon for me, and I've got 30 piano students. I don't have an empty nest. By the time that my day is done, I'm going, wow, this is peace and quiet. And so I think that was an adjustment more for Dad. And I think a lot of women go through it, but I think I was more aware and not wanting to go down that road. And so I had things that I filled my life with. The other side of that actually goes back to the very beginning and our relationship. Dad and I love being together. And I can't imagine if you didn't have a good relationship, the walls of your home could be very confining, I think.
Maybe to wrap up this episode, why don't you both give us your best tips for building that relationship when chaos and kids and messes and busyness is really everywhere? How do you keep your relationship strong?
Compliment each other. Be patient. Don't let little things that might tend to irritate you. You just can't. You just have to be patient.
Yeah, I don't know that I could really remember a day that Dad did not say, "You look nice." He always compliments me every day. And every day we tell each other we love each other. We pray together. Everything. We are very different personality-wise. Dad is very reserved, very calm, even-keeled, and I'm very bing, bing, bing. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's go. And, sometimes both of us feel like I wish we could be like the other. I wish I could be calm and never offend anyone. And Dad wishes that he had things that he loved to go and do. And so there are things we admire about each other that we don't have that trait. But we have it in our spouse, which is really a good thing.
And supporting each other in those things as well.
Yeah.
I don't just say, "Oh, so go do your thing, that's whatever." I support her in the things she likes to do.
Like the horses. The horses are not cheap. And Dad will ride. He doesn't love riding like I love riding, but he knows how much it means to me. And so when I say, "Well, do you think we should sell the horses?" And he's going, "Why?" "Well, because they're expensive and you don't do much with the horses." And he's going, "Do you realize how much you love it and how much you help other people? Some people have fancy cars, some people have fancy houses. We have horses." Now, which is a very sweet thing, which reinforces to me that it's okay that I love to do this thing. And he supports, he goes down and feeds every night for me. And so that support, and I remember one of my brothers having dinner with us one time, and I had said something to you kids about, "Did you thank your dad for going to work today?" And my brother said,
I remember that.
"Do you?" When he said, "What I wouldn't give for my wife to say that and to appreciate that and to encourage my children to appreciate that I go to work for them." And it seems like a simple little thing, but it's an important thing to remind the kids, okay, maybe you don't see Dad all day. Do you realize that he is going to work all day long so that you can have the things that you need, so that we can have food, that we can have clothes? And so, again, I think being aware of each other in your companionship. And I think for people who have maybe a less than ideal companionship, that can be changed. But it takes work and awareness and unselfishness and forgiveness.
We will be back next week talking about the art of follow-through. How to help your kids respect you as the parent. I really, I appreciate everything you've shared today and talking about the relationship itself, talking about those perspectives, the openness to growth, the mindsets of you won't know it all. You don't have all the answers, but having those things like prayer and your trust in each other to turn to and that teamwork. There is no formula for parenting, it seems. That's what I'm hearing from you. There is no formula.
Continual learning.
Okay, any last comments before we wrap this one up and we'll say goodbye until next week? Well, I'll talk to you sooner than that. But
yeah, no, my last comments are, parents, hang in there. Parenting is not easy, but it is rewarding and it's worth it, and you can do it.
Right. Well, and I did want to make this comment really quick on the supportiveness because, from my vantage point as a child, that support extended to us as kids as well. I know all of us kids have talked about it, in our sibling circles, about how supported we all felt. And we had a great variety of different things, from drill team to football to soccer to basketball to volleyball to theater to violin to, we all 7 kids, all very ambitious, doing a lot of things. And I cannot think of one thing that I didn't have one or both parents at. I really can't.
Yeah. Dad and I talked about that too over the years. This is why you have two parents. Can you imagine doing this on your own? And I know there are many single parents who are, and it is a very hard road, but even single parents can do it.
By the way, it was fun supporting you.
Oh, thank you.
And, and that's the thing, too, that I feel like one of the huge strengths from Dad's family, his upbringing, his parents were always there at every event. Again, maybe if Grandpa was working out of town, he might not, be there. But I was so impressed with that when Dad and I first got married, when we were engaged. And anyway, that's been a huge influence, I think, in our family. It's why we do what we do.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review. You can do that on iTunes, Stitcher, or any of the podcast players you are listening to this on. We are grateful for each and every one of your listens and hope you find that value. Through your reviews, we're able to reach more people. That's just the way the internet works. So we do thank you in advance for your positive review and for sharing your story with us. If at any time you'd like to reach out, share with us some insights, what you're learning from the Power Your Life Today podcast, definitely welcome that. You can reach me at KristyJo, KristyJo, at body-buddies.com. And if you're interested in learning more about nutrition and fitness and becoming a strategist and a critical thinker of your own health, join me on my other podcast, Body Buddies, where you will learn how to power your body one meal, one workout, and one day at a time.